This is Stadium to Boardroom. Listen in as top athletes tell their stories on how they developed into successful entrepreneurs and business leaders. They reveal their own aha moment of transformation from the stadium to the boardroom.
Hello, America. I'm Robert Grease.
And I'm Lynn Green.
And welcome to Stadium to Boardroom, the only show in America where we talk with great athletes about succeeding in business as well. And we're here today with the one and only Doug Flutie. How are you, Doug?
I'm doing well, thanks. I'm hanging out in Florida being a bum, just having fun.
Well, I think you put your time in. You've earned that, right? So I want to start off. You have all of these records over 21 years in professional football, including the most yards thrown, longest pass, everything. And what have you learned from sports that translates, because you're doing great stuff, which we'll talk about autism later in the show, but what have you done in sports and what have you learned from that about all the successes you've had in business?
I think the number one thing that you get out of sports is being accountable to your team and your teammates and knowing how to prepare, what it takes to be or the drive that it takes to be successful. All that, the work ethic is what is the number one thing that comes out. And then especially in team sports, you don't want to be the guy in your group that lets the group down. You don't want the mistake that you made cost everyone. So what you realize is you surround yourself with good people. You surround yourself with people you trust. You surround yourself with people that work as hard as you do. And that's where, whether it's primarily my business is my foundation, but and that's where you become successful, trusting enough that you can, relinquish the reins and allow others to do their thing and be successful.
And Doug, also from all the people that we've interviewed so far, most of them also say the confidence that they have in themselves, that because it's been tested on the athletic field, and they feel that when they get into the business world, assuming that they can get the knowledge of it, which is another step, which is why I teach entrepreneurship, perhaps in college, because you really have to have the foundation kind of thing. But do you think confidence is also a very important part of it?
Confidence is everything. Confidence is everything in athletics. I was, especially as a kid, very shy, quiet, naive. And I'd get on the field, and that was my home. That was where I was most comfortable. And all the confidence that I had in the classroom and in business or anything after, or just in walking up and introducing myself to people and shaking a hand, all that confidence came from my success in sports, of who I am. You don't want to be labeled by just being a jock and that you were an athlete, but that success that I had on the field allows me to walk up with confidence, to walk into a group of people, of elite people, of people that have been very successful and feel like I belong and just shake a hand, look a guy in the eye and be confident. And that comes from having success. And my success obviously came on the playing field.
So I want to talk about your foundation, about autism.
Well, just to put that in perspective, 1 in 36 kids today is diagnosed with some form of autism or developmental delay. When I first started our foundation, actually, you go back to the early 80s, it was 1 in 20,000. When I first started our foundation, maybe it was 1 in 10,000, and numbers.
Wait, how could those numbers have changed so much?
I could get very controversial here, but I firmly believe it's a lot to do with vaccinations. Childhood vaccinations, there were only like 10 in the early 80s. And now there's over 70 to 80 shots before they turn 18. The combination of the MMR, the measles, mumps, rubella immunization in 88 was a spike in numbers from there forward. I firmly believe, I can't prove it. All you can do is use numbers to back yourself up, but you can't prove it. But I think that had a lot to do with the numbers escalating like they have. And so when you say everyone is touched by it, there's no doubt. Every family I know, someone in the family, somewhere along the line has been touched by autism, and it becomes a big part of their life.
And I'm going to leave it with you. I know you got something.
Again, from an entrepreneurial point of view, the Nugenics advertisement with Frank Thomas is really good. How does somebody say, hey, Doug Flutie belongs in this kind of advertisement?
I don't, there's so many great athletes out there that are still in decent shape, but that is the number one thing I think that stood out. I worked with, Nugenics is a branch of the Instaflex.
Right.
Instaflex was the original product I was backing for years. And the guys from Instaflex were Boston area, or I remember the first time I talked to them was at a Boston Celtics game. And I just did an online thing. They were online. They used my image. Then we did commercials for 10 years. Then they kind of decided, you know what? We're coming out with this Nugenics. It's more of a masculine thing. Why don't we, were there? And they made the Instaflex more towards women and Nugenics towards men. And they bumped me over with Frank to do the Nugenics ads. So I was with them from the start. But the bottom line, the reason I've continued the relationship, not that I've continued it, but they've continued the relationship, is because I continually stay fit and in shape, and they like that image, and it fits their brand. We've had a couple. Frank and I have been the mainstay of the commercial for years. We've had other people bop in and bop out. Some work, some haven't, and it wasn't all a matter of who's in the best shape and who looks good. It's personality wise who relates to the public, or who the public relates to more.
Yeah, and again, it's very interesting. We had Kim Kardashian come to Babson, okay, and she had, of course, her line of clothing, and then she said, "I'm going to have a men's part of clothing." And I raised my hand and I said, "I really don't think it's going to work." Well, she said, "It's working very, very well because women buy, okay, the stuff for men."
For the men.
The same thing happens here, believe it or not. I think if you look at the statistics, women are buying that product for men.
For their husbands.
Yeah.
There you go.
Boyfriends. Yeah.
There you go. And the other thing I wanted, it's so funny because we have a group of my old high school buddies and circle, and we get together for lunch like once a month. And they start ribbing me about doing ED ads. And I'm like, it's a testosterone booster. It's not an ED drug. This is different. It's all just about energy level. So Frank gave the wink and nod to and she'll like it too thing. Yeah. And so everybody thinks it's the other.
Yes.
But the client loved the line when he did it. So it stuck. And now it's like really the trademark of the commercials that people relate to.
Yeah. And it cross sells. Okay, and then the other quick one that we had, and then you can shift back to you, Robert, is we had Rick Barry on earlier. Yeah. Okay, and I asked Rick the question of how he could make a fortune today. He said, "I can make a fortune today by teaching football players, basketball players, how to shoot underhand instead of the way they're shooting now, because it would increase the amount of scoring and what have you." I bet you could have something on drop kicking, because nobody knows how to drop kick anymore.
But there's no use for the drop kick, right? It's like, it's easy to line up kick a field. I'll go coach kids. In fact, Drew Brees and I were together in San Diego, and we used to mess around, and I showed him how to drop kick, and we would actually play catch, drop kicking back and forth. And so after I had retired, he was in a Pro Bowl, and during the Pro Bowl, he decided he was going to try to kick an extra point drop kick, and he screwed it up. He messed up his drop and kicked the line drive and missed it. But I would love to. I'd love to see, and that would open that door. What I would love to see is them open it up to the NFL to say, "Hey, you know what? If you drop kick the field goal, it's worth 4 points.
Yes, right.
Or if you drop kick the extra point, it's worth 2. Something like that." Of course, I think it would get a lot of coaches fired because you're making these decisions and you lose the points. But it's interesting. And with Rick, I think his frustration is that there's no excuse for not being a 90% foul shooter or better.
Okay.
Right? And it drives him nuts that the fundamentals of the game are getting lost.
On the other hand, when we had Drew Brees on, that was one of the things that he regretted. That he never learned how to drop kick properly because he embarrassed himself. So, it's a crazy world, Doug.
Yeah, I know he didn't embarrass himself, but in his mind, he was like he really wanted to do that.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
I'm giving boring stuff. I'm saying we're about to take a commercial break in a moment. And I will say on those extra points for the drop kick, it's a cool idea. A couple of years back, I was interviewing David Stern, ran the commissioner of the NBA for like 30 years. And I proposed a 4-point play because I said at the end of the basketball game, someone fouls, they shoot, they foul, they shoot. It's boring. If you had a 4-point play, you'd get guys from like Romania who are experts at it. And he says, well, where would this be? And I said, from half court. So it never happened. He said he didn't want to make a mockery of the game. But we are with Doug Flutie. We're Len Green and I were about to take a break. When we come back in Stadium to Boardroom, we are going to ask, just stay tuned, because one of the greatest challenges anyone could ever imagine in their life, and how Doug, with all of his success, how he dealt with this challenge. Stay tuned. Back in a few. Hi, this is Robert Reese.
And Len Green.
And we're here on Stadium to Boardroom, where we talk with great athletes and how they use that acumen to succeed tremendously in business. We're with Doug Flutie, and he has the incredible Doug Flutie Jr. Foundation for Autism, which we spoke about in part one. But you've had, successes that no one's had. You were probably the greatest Hail Mary like I've ever seen in college. Everyone still talks about that. You threw for more yards, the only person ever professionally to throw for over 6,000 yards. But so you've had all these successes. You would probably, I can't even imagine one of the greatest tragedies in life where your dad passed away and then your mom unexpectedly did an hour later. How did you deal with that? I mean,
well, initially, my dad was ill. My dad had some kidney issues. He had diabetes. He had a few things going on. And we knew that was coming soon. Actually, the morning he passed was a little quick. We thought he still had a little bit of time. So what happened was it was early morning. My mom had gone in to the hospital. I had been with him till like 2 a.m. the night before. And she gives me a call and says, hey, Dad's in trouble. Get over to the hospital. So I'm on my way over. When I show up at the hospital, my dad had passed. My mom was on the table getting the paddles and trying to be revived. My mom had 5 to 10 minutes after my dad passed, went over, kissed him on the forehead, went over, sat down, and had a massive heart attack. They refer to it as dying of a broken heart. And what happens is because of the extreme stress, an artery closes off. And even when they're trying, I mean, if you're going to have a heart attack, you want to be in ICU, right? Your chances are pretty good. But there was absolutely nothing they could do. They couldn't bring her back. And so I lost both my parents within minutes of each other. And they've been together since she was 16. They got married right out of high school and been together forever, 56 years of marriage. And, the trauma of seeing my dad pass in front of her, it just hit her hard. And the crime of it was that mom was still healthy. Mom was still playing golf. Like, she was 73. She was playing golf a couple times a week. She's playing tennis a couple times a week. She was still very active and had been in a situation where she was taking care of my father a lot. And we thought once Dad passed, maybe Mom would be able to relax and enjoy herself a little more. As far as dealing with it, I just know that they made my life possible. They did everything in the world. They were all about their kids. My dad, there's a little league field here named after the family that my dad started the little league. My dad coached so many kids, including myself, and gave me the opportunities. Mom would be the one that was there to open the concession stand and take you. They were always there. I think the one thing that I was very fortunate, we didn't have money, we didn't have anything, but I had both parents around all the time. And I had both parents that were attentive and caring and taking us to the ball field and coaching the teams and running the concessions. My mom coached softball for my daughter or for my sister, all that kind of stuff, that they were always there for us. Even though we grew up pretty darn poor and didn't have much, I had both parents there the whole way.
In a sense, Doug, that is the most important legacy you can have. Okay.
Oh, the effect my dad and mom had on the community and all the kids growing up that played ball through these years. I mean, that is a heck of a legacy. And that's how he lives on. It's like everyone that walks up to this ball field and plays, the Flutie name is on the ball field. I guess it's on there because of me, but it all started because of my father and my mother being at the field.
Can I pivot for a moment? With all the people that you've met over the years, and if you ask Robert how many CEOs he's met in his lifetime, it's thousands, and they all have stories. And to me, it's fascinating because I enjoy reading and meeting with so many of the entrepreneurs and what they do and why they do it. And one of the earlier things that I met was some entrepreneur by the name of Donald Trump. Okay, who you had the opportunity to do also kind of thing. And then I met him and Herschel Walker and a whole bunch. Was that an experience that you remember at all?
The initial, when we were young, I was 22 years old when I first saw. Now I since then have spent a little time around Donald Trump, and it's a different relationship. When I was 22 years old, like I said, I was kind of a quiet kid, and I was yes sir, no sir. He was the boss, and I was kind of intimidated, didn't say much, didn't really get to know him, and I was just trying to play football. Fast forward years later, I was playing in San Diego and doing the Jay Leno show. And Donald Trump happened to be a guest that night, just coincidentally. And we were sitting in the green room for a pretty good amount of time, just yapping away. And it was really a cool conversation and talk. And since then, or before that and after it, a couple little things here and there. So the dynamics of the relationship changed. I just know that initially I was a scared kid. I didn't know what to say. It's like, okay, that's Donald Trump. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yeah, the owner, it's such a different relationship. I see these young kids now going, when they turn pro, get drafted and go in, like, it's not like that. They're so far ahead of where we were, like as far as dealing with coaches, dealing with management, dealing with contracts. I mean, if I didn't have an agent back then, I would have been lost.
What do you have for, like, the guy does a little bit sports here and there, and what is the secret to staying really healthy? And look at you. Look how young you look right now.
I just get up and get moving and don't make a big production. People make this big production about going to the gym, right? I got to go to the gym. It's a 20-minute ride over to the gym. I got to change, get in my outfit, and then they go. And then, what am I going to do? I'm going to treadmill. And it's about a 2-hour process between the time you leave your house or you start getting ready and the way you get back. You could have already gotten up and just gone for a 20-minute walk. That gets it done, right? It doesn't have to be a major production to stay in shape. Just, you're bored, get up and go for a 20-minute, half-hour walk and come back.
Yeah, and there you have it. That is great advice. I remember George Halverson was the CEO of Kaiser Permanente, and I once asked him the secret to staying healthy for CEOs to have a healthy culture. He said, create a walking culture. Everyone should just walk, just like you said, 20 minutes a day. That's it.
It's not that tough. There's some downtime somewhere. If not, do it before you go to work or when you get home from, whatever that time of day is, you can set it aside. And then whenever you're bored, do it. Instead of sitting there flipping stations or looking at your phone for an hour goes by, especially younger people with reels on Instagram or whatever. You can actually, they do walk with their head down in their phone. And they walk right across the street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, okay. And on that note, I want to wrap up this amazing journey. Len Green and I have been speaking with Doug Flutie, and in Stadium to Boardroom, here are two things to remember. When you think about the team, number one is being accountable to your team and not letting yourself be the person to let them down. And number two